Okay, we're here with the launch procedures. So, if you're up to this point, you're going to be in for a little bit of a longer episode here. For the launch procedures, you're just going to run the ascent boost checklist. So at T-minus 0 seconds, you'll get the liftoff light, verify your clock is running here and here, verify program 11, and of course,
T-minus 15 seconds.
engine lights off.
Internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Liftoff light, clock running, program 11, MET running.
Roger, we got a roll from
Tower cleared.
Roger, roll. Complete and emission program.
Alright, roll complete and pitch is programmed. So, the next part of the checklist, which occurs at 42 seconds, is our Mode 1 Bravo. If we were to abort right now at 1 Alpha, we would dump all of our RCS propellant. However, at Mode 1 Bravo, we're high enough off the ground that instead of dumping, we'll actually pressurize.
Mark, 1 Bravo.
1 Bravo? So we'll actually pressurize our RCS propellant instead of dumping it. And that'll actually activate RCS command, pressurize the propellant, and do all of that automatically for us. We'll also make sure that the cabin valves are causing the cabin pressure to bleed to the nominal level. And those are these guys. We'll talk about those later. Yep, so if we were to abort right now, we will get yeeted off. RCS would pressurize, and it would set, you can even see it's called RCS command, it would set RCS command to on automatically. And that would allow us to control our attitude and do a flip over for our entry. So we're high enough now that we would actually have an entry interface. So we do not dump, we pressurize and command. Next up is taking EDS to manual.
Stand by for Mode 1 Charlie. Stand by for Mode 1 Charlie. Mark.
Mode 1 Charlie.
Go. Final, go. Guidance, go. Set for staging, Captain. This is Houston, you are go for staging.
So here, just making sure manual abort. So if 2 engines are out, we decide if we abort. If launch vehicle rates exceed, we decide if we abort. And for any other situation, EDS is in manual. We decide if we abort.
Confirm inboard, got it.
Inboard engine shutdown for G reduction and pogo reduction. Next up is staging at 2 minutes 39 seconds. Staging. And lights off, so S2 ignition at 2 and 40.
Thrusters go all engines. Let me fix that.
At 3 minutes 15 seconds, we'll get tower jettison.
Roger, you're loud and clear.
In real life, this does not happen automatically. The auto mode is actually if you abort. However, in reentry, this graciously happens automatically, and that's because these switches are incredibly hard to hit.
Tower's gone. Tower's gone.
Tower's gone. And these would spring load back to the off position in real life as well. We're going to check. So no longer do we need to monitor angle of attack. We just monitor the SPS PC. Manual attitude, pitch to rate command. And now we'll activate our glycol evaporator. So our glycol evaporator, basically, it boils off water to cool the spacecraft. So we need to activate cooling because right now we are completely isolated from our radiators, and we've been running for a while, so we've produced a lot of heat running the computer, the displays, all the instruments.
You are go at 4 minutes.
So this system will basically flow water and pump glycol So glycol touches a heat exchanger, and in a loop there's flowing water, and that will heat up that flowing water, and then that water will touch a panel with a bunch of stromata, or little tiny holes, and the vacuum of space will instantly sublimate or evaporate the water. It's not really evaporation because it's not caused by a temperature difference, it's caused by a pressure difference, so it's called sublimation, technically, but don't ask why it's labeled evaporator. And that causes the cooling. You move that water from a low energy state to a high energy state, and so it sucks in heat, and it ejects it out overboard. Next up is our S4B2 contingency orbit insertion capability. We're going to activate the gimbal motors on the SPS. If we need to abort at S4B to COI, the S2 would shut down and be jettisoned, and the S4B would ignite and insert us into contingency orbit insertion. If the S4B were to have a failure after staging or during that period of time also, we could trigger another abort, and that will activate the SPS, at which point we will thrust and do whatever we need to do to either insert into orbit or to get down onto the ground. And we can't insert into an orbit, however, we can use the engine to soften our entry angle or whatever we need. We're not high enough to get into that orbit.
Stand by S4B to COI capability.
Okay.
Mark, S4B to COI capability.
S4B to COI, yeah, this is activated pitch 1, yaw 1, pitch 2, yaw 2. In reentry, though, for some reason, it's just straight across. You'll make sure that your gimbal motors have activated and are commanding the right settings for center of gravity before switching back to your launch vehicle indication. Next up is the S2 inboard engine cutoff. Again, pogo and G reduction. And just for reference, if you want, verb 82 will show your altitude, your pitch, or sorry, your apoapsis and your periapsis. And then noun 62 will show, I believe that is our velocity. But I don't remember, unfortunately, but verb 82, noun 62. That's something you can do. It's not required. So yeah, we're basically just waiting for that S2 inboard engine cutoff, and so level sense arm inboard cutoff. There we go.
Roger, we confirming the Lord now.
The level sense arm will get uncovered at 8 plus 34, so 8 minutes 34 seconds. The probe, which is sticking inside of the tank, will be uncovered, and that'll start our staging sequence. PU shift, that's propellant utilization shift, and what that does is it shifts the utilization of propellant and oxidizer so that both the propellant and the oxidizer are exhausted from the S2 at the same time. Both the S2 and S4B have a PU shift, but the S4B's PU shift is not called out.
Okay, boost is flying out. You staging. We're going for staging flight. Guys, go. Go for staging. 11, this is Houston. You are go for staging. Over. Stand by for mode 4 capability.
Mode 4?
Stand by for mode 4 capability. Mark, mode 4 capability.
Mode 4, now we have the ability to... Staging. Now we have the ability to insert into orbit with the SPS and do a landing as an abort option. And at this point, we are just going to wait for orbit insertion. Coming up on 10 minutes. Predicted cutoff is 11 plus 4.2 with safing at 4.5 if I remember correctly. We'll see how well that holds up. But if I remember correctly, it's 11 plus 4.2 at shutdown. (10 minutes 35 seconds). (11 minutes). Coming up on cutoff. And it looks like we're actually rapidly approaching our 25,500 feet per second, so we'll actually probably get shut down at about 11 plus 4.2 as predicted. There we go.
Roger, shut down. Flight Fighter, we are go. Confirmed go. You are confirmed to go for orbit. Flight guidance, GNN is go.
Alright, so at this point, you just hit key release because key release is telling you it wants to be hit. Here we can see our orbit is a 100.5 by 100.4 nautical mile orbit. We're going to terminate program 11 and write these launch values into our quote-unquote state vector. Not simulated in reentry, but that basically, the computer would be informed of how the launch went only after the program was terminated. Now verb 66 and verb 45 will open up our extended verbs. And then run program 00. We're already in it, but basically that would just be the equivalent of that verb 37, enter, 00, enter. Now it says verify digital autopilot load. DAP is digital autopilot. Verb 48, row 1 equals 31102. So you're going to run verb 48, enter. Verb 21, enter. Plus 31102, enter. And row 2 would be enabling or disabling each quad. That's not implemented in reentry, so you shouldn't need to touch it. Proceed. Here we would input our weight data. So verb 21, enter, plus 60215, enter. Proceed. Here we would input our gimbal angles for our CSM center of gravity. We are attached to the S4B, so that's not important. Proceed. Brings us back to here. Verb 46, enter. Toggles the Saturn DAP. And that's it. That is your entire boost checklist. And at this point, you would go ahead with your insertion checks. So I'll work on those next.